I think in small and big ways, we always should be trying to kind of step outside of our comfort zones. Having a curiosity about your own, what you are capable of or what you can do, I think that is something really, really important.
Hello and welcome back to Wiser Together. This is your host Parmeet Kumar with my brother and the co-host of this podcast, Anas Pasha.
Hi guys, how are you? How are you guys?
Good bro, how are you?
Great.
And we have a
Amazing.
very
Thank you.
lovely guest here today. Just to introduce her, we call her Sadia Mane. Her name is Sadia. And I do a very small introduction for everyone, and I'll start off with that with you. You're that only friend I have that doesn't have social media. So please tell us about that.
Oh wow, we're already
Right off the
getting into
bat.
it.
We're already getting into it.
Oh, great question. I think for me, I left it around 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. I was
So you
in the
did have
first year of
social media
university.
before.
I did have social media. I had it for around a couple of years when I was in high school. And then when I joined university, I started observing the way social media works, the impact that it has on your mind, the way it makes you kind of conform to a certain way of thinking, because obviously the algorithm is
Yeah.
designed to push you towards certain ways of thinking. So I felt, I didn't want my mind to conform to that. Plus the impact that it has on you in terms of just looking at everybody's lives, everybody's putting out their best selves, trying to put out your best selves. There's such a pressure, in that situation. And then in addition to that, hours and hours and hours and hours of mindless scrolling, things you don't even remember in the end. I felt like I wasn't really getting anything at all out of it. There was one argument people would always put up in front in terms of, it helps you connect with your friends, but even I didn't find that to be the case. I found it to be very shallow connections that I made through social media. It's always much better for me if I can actually sit down with a friend in person. I mean, I'm very bad at even texting and on WhatsApp and things like that, and
Yeah.
a lot of people complain about that. Because for me, it's the face-to-face in-person interaction where you can really get to know each other. You can obviously also have like very chill, fun, light interactions, but face to face in person is always what matters to me. So I just never felt anything that I was getting out of it that was positive for me. But I think similarly for you, that's always been the case for you too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See?
yeah.
Go on,
I just
Anas.
wanna
Yeah.
before Parmeet starts, I just wanna like put out the caveat over there. So for Parmeet, it's something for the past 2 3 years I heard this and I never understood, and I want his analysis on this. Is that he uses it and then he deletes it. There's not a single person in the world that I know deletes an app and then reinstalls it 15 minutes after to use the same app. I would like to know why this happens. Why could you not just
Okay,
turn off
first
the
of all,
Yeah, this
notification?
I've also noticed many, many times, but at least he
I
tries.
don't I don't download it
It does
after
not make any
15
sense.
minutes. Uh, but I do see I only have it on my phone when I want to use it. So I'll download it, I'll use it, which takes 30 seconds to download, and then it already has my details saved. So I just tap a button and I'm in. Use it for 10 15 minutes, and then I just once when I get out of it, I just delete it, right? And I do that because I don't know. My mind is just addicted to just going there and subconsciously just going to that app and pressing it and start scrolling. And I sometimes waste a lot of time. Now, you might say that you're so mindful and self-aware and this and that, but this is something that I struggle with, and this is the solution. See, I find a solution. So this is the solution I found for myself, which works really well for me. So that's why I do it. And now obviously now there is a lot of, before I used to like take a week's break as well. I wouldn't use it for a week, then I'll use it for 15 20 minutes and delete it. But now it's obviously work is involved as well, so I need to be on there for work purposes, be it for the podcast or whatnot. So yeah, it's just something that works for me. uh it's
No,
only
the both of
because it's
yeah.
only
Please go ahead.
because so I don't go on the app subconsciously. That's the
I see.
only
So it's like
reason.
a mind muscle connection sort of a thing going on.
Yeah, I still see myself, when I don't have freaking Instagram, I'll go on LinkedIn and start scrolling. up and
That
down.
actually happens.
My thumb just goes up and down, and
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, we've and YouTube as well. Now there's
Yeah.
shorts, so like I gotta be very self-aware.
I think I can relate to that point you mentioned. Like once I left, because Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, nothing I had, but then I found myself like Reddit or LinkedIn or even YouTube. But even
Oh,
then, I
we have
had
a
to put
fellow
my foot down.
redditor.
Oh yes, of course. But then I had to uninstall all of those apps too because it was the same thing but in a different, version. So I had to also remove those because all of these are just designed to be so addictive. It's
Yeah.
impossible to
See,
even when
I
you are
have a
trying to mindfully be
question.
fully mindful.
Absolutely. I have a question for you guys. I mean, with all of these realizations, and we're all about the same age as well, but why don't more people realize these things?
yeah,
And
I
what's
was
keeping them over there?
yeah, I was just gonna say this. The thing you mentioned, spot on. You realize that you didn't want to conform to the ideas and what the algorithm is teaching you because they're trying to brainwash you like anything else. They in the 60s 70s they used to tell you cigarettes are good for you, athletes were
Yeah.
smoking it, right? It's kind of like that. These companies have a certain agenda and they're trying to push it through their algorithm and trying to get your attention and all of that. We all deep down know this, and it's out there, it's common knowledge, everybody knows this, but I don't know how, it's just you had this
It's a kind of a
realization.
funny story.
Yeah,
So
please tell us how were you able to act on it, because that's where people really kind of
yeah, I think I just never grew too attached to social media in the first place. So I got my
hmm,
first phone. It was an HTC Chacha when I was 15 years old. So I was already kind of, late to the game.
yeah.
At 15, I got that. At 16 or something, the O levels results came in for Pak Studies and Islamiyat, and I got an A and a B. So my mom was disappointed. Like she was like,
A and
"You
a B
are."
disappointed, okay.
She was so upset with me. She took my phone away for a year.
I got a
Okay, and
B
then
and
I
a
had that.
Oh,
C.
wow.
I got a B and a C, and my parents were
So
happy.
no, my mom was really disappointed. She took away my phone for a year, and then I had that little Nokia phone with like you X X X X X.
Yeah,
When you're typing, you
this
do it multiple
snake
times.
snake game, yeah.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
had that phone in like the prime of my teenage years. By the time I was 17 or 18, I still didn't have like a proper phone. So I never just really got too connected to social media. And then once I got better grades, like I got my phone back. I had it for a year, but I just didn't manage to get too attached somehow. And then when I kind of started realizing this thing, I was really fortunate to have a sister who was willing to be an accountability buddy. So we decided that we would
At
both
that
leave social
age,
media at
wow.
that age. She's
Hmm.
4 years younger than me. Yeah. So I think I was maybe 18 or 19 and she was like 14, 15, something like that. So we became accountability buddies for each other and we left everything. And she stayed off also with me for quite a few years. She went back now because she's an artist and has a page and everything, but we just somehow, it really helped me. One, because I never developed the attachment, like I said, and two, because I had somebody really to have my back very early on.
I think that's what it is. It's just you not, because these things like they have an effect on you from very early on. I remember
So,
I had social media when I was 12, 13, and obviously that
yeah.
has an impact on how I see it now, and the attachment or addiction I may say I have to it. uh, it's not as bad as you think. As it's not as bad, it's not as bad as you think, just because I use the word addiction. I don't,
LinkedIn.
I'm
You
not
go
on,
on
I'm
LinkedIn
not.
and do this.
No, my phone time, my screen time is pretty good. It's under 2 hours, which is pretty good in
Which
my,
is great.
because yeah, because the surroundings we live in, like there's everyone
And
has
the
6 7 hours.
circumstances, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for you it was that you started late, and because your surrounding, like your sister obviously was always around, and you had that sort of
Yeah.
impact from her.
Support
So
system to kind of, yeah.
yeah, I think that's what it is.
I
Yeah.
believe the most important thing that I took out of Sadia's, because this is one thing we've always asked Sadia about and always wondered, right? So now it's out on the open. However, there's something that I can relate with her story as well, is that the fact that she understood this very basic principle that life goes on without social media.
Hmm.
As much as how pop culture and as much as how these companies have tried to ingrain this thought that there is no life without social media, and that there is another caveat to this is connectivity, which I'll come to in a bit, but that life does go on without social media. It's when you are on the other side that you realize that, oh, okay, one day, one week, one month, I did live, I did breathe. I actually did not even do those things. I thrived without posting a story, without posting a picture, or without telling the world what I was up to. Um,
Yeah.
we still thrive in that. So once you're on that side of the fence, and once you say that, hey, I could potentially save up not only a lot of hours in time, but a lot of energy, a lot of thoughts that can actually be utilized and put into other things that we want to achieve in our life. That for me was the reason why I stopped using completely. I, like Parmeet mentioned, it's just because the circumstance that I might use for the sake of business purposes, but that's the only utility that I think of it. Other than making it like a memorial page, that's it. That's it. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Second thing that Sadia talked about, connectivity. I 100% agree. Those connections that we make over there are going to be very shallow, are going to be very weak. I realized that once I stopped using it, the people who wanted to connect with me, the people that I wanted to connect with me, connected me over WhatsApp, called me, or how we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We're just, even this is a form of connection, right? We caught up with each other's life, and we did our thing. So I believe that with these realizations, like all with all three of us that we have, like that, first of all, life can go without just being there or just posting things or just saying the things that other people are doing. Life goes on, and that connectivity doesn't necessarily needs to have Instagram or Snapchat or these sort of thing. Because, for example, if one of my friends is getting engaged or anything, and if I do have like a deep connection with that person, then I'm gonna know one way or the other. Either I'm gonna call them, either they're gonna call me, or either like we'll know over a WhatsApp image or something like that. So our presence over all social medias doesn't necessarily need to be there. Only the ones which are important. I believe WhatsApp is an exception because it is a form of like it has that little intimate
It's a bit
aspect to it.
different though.
Yeah, it has that
WhatsApp
like,
is.
intimate aspect to it. Like it's like a one-on-one chat. So I believe that is the only exception to it.
Because you're
I
in
think
control. Yeah, go on, Sadia.
oh, sorry. I think one interesting point that you really touched upon kind of briefly about how with social media you feel like, even without social media you can continue living. I feel like without social media is where life is, right? Like, okay, this podcast is about mindfulness. And one thing that I found was that when I had social media for the couple of years, 1 year, 2 years that I did, when even if I was with my friends in a really beautiful country, traveling around, eating, going out, whatever, my focus was also always on like how is this going to be perceived when I record it and put it online. I wasn't really fully in the moment. I was more focused on how it was going to be put into that online world.
Yeah.
And I really found once I let go of that connection that I had to social media, to my phone, whatever, I am now really fully, if I'm talking to someone, my mind is 100% with them. There is
I'm,
no
I'm,
internal
I'm just
monologue.
gonna
There's
add
nothing.
one thing. I'm just gonna
Of
add
course.
one thing, and I had to interject because I want to give depth to what Sadia is saying. We went to the Coldplay's concert in Dubai, so we were the very lucky ones who could attend that concert. And at that time, they were like front and center, and we're watching the concert. And I saw everyone, including myself. I'm like recording this and that. What
Phones
Sadia is
out.
saying,
Yeah.
exactly. She wasn't, and
Yeah.
she loves. I know how much she loved
I can imagine.
them, exactly, and how much she wanted to be there. But this girl was present throughout the concert. They're not. I don't know if she did. That's her right as well. But just want to give depth to what she was saying. That she was involved. She was immersed in the experience, and she did not like do what 99% of us were doing.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's also a thing of respect to the person you're with, speaking to, or you're watching, or whatever. If you're with them, your phone is down. I'm not trying to text anybody. I'm not really picking up any calls. You're fully with them. So I think it's a way to really enhance human connection, at the
Yeah.
same time be more mindful and present wherever you
Ev-
are.
Everyone wants to do that, but it's just
Yeah.
that people who use social media for that extended period of time for so long, it's an illness, right? Even though they
Yeah.
want to be there fully and they want to be fully present, they just can't. They suffer through some level of ADHD, and it's if you see like how ADHD has come up in our generation, it's just growing and growing and growing, and kids who are growing in this generation, they would definitely have ADHD. Shifting focus within seconds. So of course they'll have ADHD, right? It's an epidemic. right? It's a big, big, big
Yeah.
problem in Western countries right now. So coming back to that, like everybody, I obviously wants to be present and have that good time, but they're just at the mercy of their circumstances using social media, which gets them to be like this. And as you mentioned, I feel it's not necessarily all bad. I always say everything is good in moderation, and that's the kind of line I try to draw on my social media. You shouldn't obviously mindlessly go on and scroll through for hours and hours, not even knowing. This was one big thing, Sadia, that I got from you and really changed my perspective as well. This was years ago, and oftentimes we say things just casually, but it has a different impact on the people
Hmm.
you're sharing it with. So it did have an impact on me, and it was that you
Well,
shared
she
that.
is a house of wisdom, that is for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, stop.
That's why you're here on the 10th anniversary of
God, I
not
am so
Tenth
anniversary,
excited to
but
be
10th.
anniversary.
here.
But but what you shared was what you said was that you don't even have any control over what you're watching or looking at, and the energy that you get from it, right? On social media, like
Yeah.
we don't even know what pops up in front of us. Like we have no control over what kind of content we're consuming. So you're basically a slave. Again, I use the slave thing a lot. You are at the slave
Parmeet,
of the algorithm. No.
it's actually the other way around. This is like, you guys must have heard that, oh, we talked about X, and then the next day ads or content about X started popping up,
That's
right?
there. That's
It's
there.
actually no, it's actually the other way around. This is what I'm saying. Actually, first of all, yes, you're absolutely right. We are slave to the algorithm, and the other way around is that when whatever you're getting in the feed, it is basically trying to first of all forecast what you would like to see in the future as well. Currently is showing you, for example, whatever you're into. If someone is into crypto, it's going to show you stuff about crypto. If someone is into mindfulness, it's going to show you clips about mindfulness. But at the same time, it tries to throw in things like, for example, if someone may be into dancing, right, it was try to throw in things. It'll see that what you're going to click and what you're not going to click, and then put you in that path for you to talk
But I
about
think
that thing.
I think even that is a little bit unsolicited, right? For example, I see
Yeah.
this a lot in politics or in extreme views of thinking. If you are, for example, in the US, you're on the right, you're only going to get further and further right content. And maybe I might have watched a couple of videos. It's not where exactly I want to go, but because you're getting more and more content, you're going to go into to a loophole very unsolicitedly, and your mind
Yes.
is automatically going to be kind of brainwashed without you even wanting that. Even though you might have watched some content, that doesn't mean you wanted to go to a full rabbit hole. It really impacts your mind quite deeply, honestly, I feel.
It
Yeah.
does.
It can't predict like 100% accurately. If let's say I'm talking about crypto, it doesn't mean I like crypto. And as if maybe I don't like crypto, but just
Yeah.
because it's heard crypto is going to show me stuff for crypto. Now this
Yeah.
could be applied for a lot of different topics that could be harmful for different populations in different ways. But at the end of the day, the algorithm, the first priority, obviously they want to promote uh, marketing, and they want to promote products that you are interested in, and obviously make sales through that and increase their engagement and their revenue. But the number one thing is attention, right? They will try to do anything and everything to get the maximum amount of attention out of you. And first, unfortunately, for some people, that's 8 7 8 hours on social media. Like that's a third of your life.
Correct.
It's
And I just want to put this one thing in. Marcus Aurelius in the Meditation says that, a Stoic, what he does is, and it's not necessarily what a Stoic needs to do, but what people need to do is that in every aspect of their life, they need to do actions with intentions, right? You must
awareness
understand.
again.
Exactly. Same concept, mindfulness and awareness. And if you are even going to social media or the apps or the channels that you're choosing, you're absolutely right. It's everything done in moderation is fine. You don't need to be there, not completely. You don't need to delete it, or you just, even if you're having it, but you need to
Yeah.
have intention as to why you're using it.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
even if it's connectivity, okay, sure, use it for connectivity. But then don't let yourself be a slave of the algorithm. Don't let yourself go down that rabbit hole where you're finding yourself 8 hours spending every day just like even messing with the algorithm. Even the algorithm can't decide what you're into. You're just so into the rabbit hole that you're watching everything, each and everything, and consuming everything mindlessly, that even the algorithm, like, just imagine, even the algorithm can't figure out what you're into. So this is what Marcus Aurelius said, that with everything that you do, you must have intention as to why you're doing it. If you're
Yeah.
picking up
I
your
think that
phone, opening up that app, yeah, just
I think the
mindfulness.
I think the topic of intention is a really interesting one, right? Because yes, you should be setting intention, and the whole concept of mastering your mind, controlling your mind is a very big one. But at the same time, there are things that you can obviously do to aid that process and make it a little bit easier, right? And I feel like if you are even going on social media for a little bit, I feel it does kind of, it's so addictive that it really throws you off. It's the same
Yeah.
case of, for example, if I want to be meditating. Yes, technically, if you're fully present, if you're fully mindful, you can even do it in the middle of a busy street. But it sure does help if you do it in a quiet room with no distractions, things like that. So I think intention, yes, of course we should set, but we should also be a little bit kind to ourselves and do it kind of create an environment that helps us kind of follow those goals that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, be real with yourself. You know,
Yeah,
like you're gonna. It's because it's so the algorithm is way too powerful. It happens to me
yeah,
as well. Even though I use it for
yeah,
15 minutes, I'll see myself scrolling. Before maybe it was 20 minutes. Now I'll scroll for 2 minutes. But it's always there, right?
yeah,
And it's just so
It's always
strange.
there. You can't escape it, and this is why these are billion-dollar companies. This is why these guys are rich beyond
We give
imagination,
them the
because they're,
power to.
yeah, because they're able to create a product. And of course, like, we giving our liberty, we giving our, again, mindfulness and awareness. They have that ability to do it. They have created a product. So I am with Sadia. I mean, it's like, if you are trying to lose weight, you can't have Cheetos and loads and tons of chocolate right in front of you. That is torture. That is torture.
yeah.
You are trying to
Make it
lose
easy
weight.
for
You are,
yourself.
yeah, make it easy for yourself. I mean, it's like your environment is definitely. So I guess, Parmeet, if you are deleting the app, keep it deleted.
See,
Put
that's what
it,
I'm.
put in a request with the people at the software, that I don't want this app even suggested to be installed. Use a
I mean,
desktop
see, that's
version
the
or
thing.
something.
Like this is what comes with self-awareness. I try to be very clear about okay, what my weakness is, and this could be a solution, and that's how I try and do it. Obviously, this is not. I would ideally like to be in the way that have it on my phone and have a certain time of the day that I'm going to use it for 15, 20 minutes and be very strict with that. I'm in the process of implementing that. But sometimes, you go to the bathroom, you don't have nothing to do, then you open it. I don't want to do that. I don't
Agreed.
want to do that. That's why I keep deleting it. So I have to find a different,
You
Chris
are. You
Williamson,
are. Yeah. Sorry.
he has three phones, and one is for social media, one is for calls,
Hmm.
and one is for different. So there's different ways you can do it, but just be aware, realize and accept that there is a problem, and then find a solution, whatever it may be for you.
To that, you
One
are.
thing I've
We discussed recently about you opening your Twitter account.
Yeah,
So you are. I mean, then you are now going towards that channel, which are serving, at least helping you serve your purpose.
yeah.
So that is another form of doing that.
I do it for that purpose, so I just limit it to that. Just sharing any worth of inspiration that I have, I can share, and just follow these mentors of mine that I get a bit of inspiration from, and I limit it to that. If I need to find out what Sadia is up to or what you're up to, I'll rather call you and have that
yeah.
quality conversation than just see your check-in post at a XYZ restaurant with random people, right?
One thing you
Without any
mentioned about
context.
like one thing you interesting you mentioned about like for example if you're in the bathroom and you just want to check your social media. I kind of struggle with this at the same time where I always needed a distraction, like, because we're just
Hmm.
humans. We don't want to sit with
Yeah.
ourselves. But one thing I consciously tried doing in the past few months is if I'm having lunch, if I'm kind of sitting idle in a waiting room, if I have time on my hands, I try to just sit with that rather than try to impulsively find
It's
something to do
hard.
with it.
Yeah.
It's
It is
very
very
hard,
hard.
but I felt it really made a difference because the mental noise kind of also clears down
The
once you are
clutter
able to
goes away.
just
Yeah.
sit with yourself. If I can have lunch alone and I'm not looking at anything, I'm just eating, just mindfully eating, I think it makes a huge difference.
You appreciate it more as well, right?
A
You
100%.
enjoy
Yeah.
the flavors more. You're more grateful for every bite you're
Yeah.
having.
But
and I couldn't agree more.
can we just understand this epidemic? Like, humans recently started having phones, and as fast and as accessible as these phones that we have right now. People before that were doing their business, their toilet business, without phones. I know that they used to have newspapers, but how did we come to this?
See, I would say it's this generation, obviously, with the things we have, social media, phones, and all, it's made it worse. But essentially, the mind works in the same way. And I always say, like, you get
Mm.
70,000 thoughts, and the mind is there to keep you occupied. Uh, you wanting to reach out for your phone, or wanting to watch TV, or it just, there's different ways it tries to keep you occupied, and that is why it's hard to just sit and eat your food, or just do
Yeah.
breathing and not focus on anything, because that is, the mind is defeated in that activity, right? The mind doesn't have control in that activity.
Mm.
So that's why it's hard. Obviously, phones and all, I think, have made it a lot worse, and there's more things that we can reach out for now, and it's getting
Yeah,
worse and worse every day.
for sure.
Yeah, I think this was a very good, a bit lengthy, and start and introduction. I want to really get down
Oh,
to,
we were still at the introduction.
not introduction per se, but we started with social
Yes.
media. So I wanted to, like, give some context to how we know Sadia. So me, Sadia, and Anas were like, uh,
And still
trio.
are.
We always
Whenever you
we
come,
used
yeah.
to hang
Or,
out together.
yeah.
I don't live in Sydney, Dubai anymore, so obviously I don't get to see you guys that often. But when I was in Dubai, we three would see each other like every weekend and have our fair like. And the call,
Have a
it
good
was a
bit of
lot
fun.
of, it was a lot of fun. Like,
It
we
was a
had
It
to.
was.
blast.
It was a
Yes.
blast, and it was
Yeah.
genuinely, it was like quality friendship as well, quality
Absolutely.
Yeah.
discussions, and
Absolutely.
just helping each other be the better version of ourselves, and it was amazing. So let's
Yeah.
just, uh, you want to give a brief introduction about yourself, like what you do in Dubai, and where you're from, and how did you get to Dubai, and what you do now, and just so people have
Okay.
an idea.
Maybe I can give the answer chronologically. So I'm
Yeah,
obviously from Pakistan. I come from a background from the Air Force. So that meant growing up, I had to live in all sorts of different cities, villages, countries. So moving around every single year, I think at that point I had changed around 11 schools. So I was
wow.
always in constant movement. Then when I went to university, I went to Bocconi in Italy, studied finance and economics there for 4 years. I was
Italy,
fortunate
right?
enough in Italy, yes, in
If
Milan.
people don't know, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
that
a
was a very
Milan girl
cool,
right
yeah,
there.
that was a very cool experience for me. After I was done, I got a job at this company called Kraft Heinz, so the little ketchup company with HP sauce, all of that. So
They
I
do more
started
than
an intern.
ketchup.
They do, yeah, they do macaroni, they do all sorts of food products.
Yeah.
I got an internship with them, which turned into a graduate trainee program, which brought me to Dubai, and then I got a full-time role as a revenue growth analyst. So I worked in finance for about a year before I realized it really wasn't for me. I really wasn't enjoying the work too much. I didn't like the environment, and I didn't really feel very connected to ketchup, let's say. So I started
But
reapplying to different places.
they gave you a ketchup with your name as well, so
Oh, dude,
they
the
tried.
amount of ketchups I had,
She's a
the
mayo
amount of
person.
ketchups. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. No, no, I'm a hot sauce person.
Oh.
But with the amount of sauces I collected through that job, it was amazing. But in any case, still didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it too much. So I started applying to new places and eventually got an offer at Adidas. So I shifted to Adidas around two.
That's good.
Thank you for the representation. I appreciate. So I shifted to Adidas around 2 years ago, started out as a
Yeah.
business analyst, worked in that capacity for a year. And then a year ago, I shifted more towards the fashion side of it because I really like the product. I really like creativity and fashion and also kind of the commercial element. So I shifted as, a manager for the sportswear category, which is basically athleisure. So it's kind of a mixed role where there's a little bit of creativity involved, and I'm also managing the commercial side of it with the entire go-to-market process. We're presenting, the entire range and the concepts to customers, strategizing with them, customers like Namshi and Noon and Sun and Sand
Yeah.
Sports, Go Sport, etc. So there's a lot of, exposure that I get to the sports industry through that and to the fashion world in general, which I've been really, really enjoying. outside of that, now I've also kind of decided to torture myself a little bit more and pursue a degree in interior design. So it's a
Yeah.
2 year degree that I'm doing from UCLA, and it's something that's always been a passion of mine. And it's something I do see myself eventually going into also. So very excited to see how that pans out. So yeah,
Well,
that's a
we're
little bit
very
about me.
excited about the future that holds for you, and I mean that your journey. For me, then I often discuss that we're just so proud of you, and we're just so inspired about everything
Oh my
that you
God.
do. And like Parmeet said, that whenever all three of us are together, the conversations are just so amazing, and that's only because like of the experiences that we've had and what each of us bring to the table. And I
Yeah.
always wanted to ask you this, and we've always had this conversation,
But
and
wait,
as you've
hold
given,
that question. Before
sure.
you go on, I also want to say, can I just say that I am so, so, so proud of you guys too? The
Oh.
way I've seen you guys kind of grow also in the past 2 years, the people you already were and are becoming even more amazing, the way you guys push yourselves out of your comfort zones, have make such a conscious effort towards self-improvement, towards introspection, towards growth. It's impressive. I've seen very, very few people in the world do this, and I have a deep respect for you guys because of it. I think this podcast is, a quintessential example of you guys really trying to extend out of your comfort zone and grow. It's a very scary thing to do. It requires a lot of commitment in terms of time and effort. But you guys, the discipline that you've shown towards this is amazing, and the content you're producing is absolutely phenomenal. And I can't wait to see, what more you have coming on.
Honestly, your love and feedback and everything, we've had this discussion before. It just means so, so, so much because obviously we have a lot of love and respect for you and we admire you in different ways. So just you coming back and you're so, I love this about you. You're very blunt and straight to the point about a lot of things, which I am as well in different ways. So honestly, right back at you. You're
Yeah,
doing amazing stuff as well in your own ways.
thank
And
you.
It's
we
like where
really
we
appreciate
picked it up, like it's like like for the last time, and we're picking it up from there. It's always the same, and it's only like an upward trajectory from here. And again, we're just
Yeah.
like Parmeet and I both were just so happy with how, like like now you're doing things that you want to do, and how you're like basically now, like if I dare to say, like having like a dictation on life. It's very important. It's very important that
Mm,
the job that you're doing you love, and the way that you were explaining, that was just so inspiring. And I'm sure people looking at this, especially, I want to put this up, I don't know if I'm going to get flagged for saying this, but I always say this: you are one of the most influential Pakistani women that I know. We can relate to
that,
how important and how necessary a person like you is for other women as well. Whenever I talk to my female friends as well, I always give you their example. And no, sorry, I always
give
give
them
them your
your,
example.
yeah.
Sorry, I got carried away. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud to know and have like a person like you, because this is what is required so much. And right back at you with everything. And I always wondered, we never got to talk about this. What are as a high performing woman, what are your three keys that you like, like key giveaways or key things that you do that keep you at this space? And again, now, like you said with the interior design, there's a second phase to this question. Like because Parmeet and I were talking about this aspect of voluntary suffering, right? You said
Yeah.
that you're torturing yourself, like, but another word that Parmeet used was voluntary suffering. How
yeah.
you're putting yourself in that voluntary suffering position by taking up that interior designing degree. So, as a high value woman, what are the three key giveaways that you can give to all of us, to men and women, that put you in that position and then gives you the strength and mental fortitude to take up further voluntary sufferings?
Yeah, I also want to expand on that a little bit because I see you're very different from a lot of the female friends I have. You have that competitive spirit in you, like
Mm.
you're a bit,
Yeah, we've
uh,
done some sports together.
yeah, like
Oh
and I absolutely love
wow.
it. So and you're like, how they call it, alpha, and yeah, and no, if you if hopefully one day inshallah you'll get married and you'll have a nice partner, you will be the alpha. That's how I see it. And because like she's someone, there's not a lot of people who work on themselves through be it through different ways of personal development, waking up early. uh, you live in Dubai alone. You have a habit of waking up early as well. You practice meditation as well. Your workouts are intense. I've seen those, and you went to Nepal as well, and we'll get to that. So maybe you can run us through how you do all these amazing things and that making you high performing woman that you are. What are the key takeaways that other women can, you know, and
She
men
seems
can.
surprised.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
why.
think
She seems
so. I think
surprised.
Like, it's not
you've
normal. Everyone does this. No, nobody does this.
you
Yes.
guys have you guys have asked me an extremely loaded question, one that I don't think I'm deserving of yet. I'm trying my best, but I don't think I'm in the capacity to be really advising anybody, of course. What I can say is I can only share my experience because I don't
Yeah.
feel like, I'm at a level to be telling anybody what to do or, I don't even
No,
consider
share
myself
your
as a high.
experience, and
Yeah,
then obviously, people
exactly.
will.
You know,
Yeah.
so I think kind of the driving forces for me, the first one I would say it comes from my home, where I come from. I'm the daughter of a very alpha woman, super independent, extremely confident, very driven, knows what she wants. And the society we live in is obviously very patriarchal, where it's not always conducive to women going to better places and doing bigger things. I remember when I was in high school and I really wanted to go abroad and I really wanted to, kind of get out of this bubble of Pakistan and see what was out there. And a lot of my female friends, they weren't allowed to do the same. Their parents, they didn't even let them study outside of the city that they were in. They couldn't, I did my high school in Islamabad, they weren't even allowed to go to Lahore or Karachi. They had to stay within that. And I was really lucky to have a mom that really pushed for that from the very beginning. And we received a lot of backlash for it. A lot of even my own family members, they found it to be a very questionable thing that a girl alone is going abroad to study, which sounds so strange, but it's
Hmm.
the way that a lot of people do, unfortunately, think in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So I think the first, factor that has really always pushed me is my mom, the kind of learnings and the ambition and the optimism that she instilled in us. She's such a forward thinker, and I think she really made sure that she instilled that in us. So I think that was one. The second is I always try and push myself out of my comfort zone, which, you guys
I've
also
seen
do.
that.
Like
Yeah.
I was listening to your podcast about how you did this half marathon. And I think that's something I really relate with. I think in small and big ways, we always should be trying to kind of step outside of our comfort zones. For example, the half marathon is also something I want to do. I did the 10K in the marathon right now. Next year, I'm planning on doing the half marathon. I did a hike that was 7 days long last year. Next year, maybe I want to do something that will challenge me a little bit more. Or maybe I want to pick up books that kind of mentally challenge me and I really need to rack my brain around them. For example, one thing that I got into recently was biology. And I realized so much good knowledge that we missed in high school that we were getting if only we focused a little bit more. So I went back to the basics. I got a university, biology textbook and really started learning about all of that. Even though I didn't have to, my life can be completely fine without, going back into that knowledge. I felt kind of pushing myself to learn about all of these things really helps me grow further. I think having a curiosity about your own, what you are capable of or what you can do, I think that is something really, really important. And then the last one, which I fortunately have learned from a very young age, is we are obviously a product of our environment. And our environment comes with certain people and certain pressures to be a certain way. I
Hmm.
learned very early on that I did not have to follow the flow every time. If my friends are going out and I need to be working on something, I will have to be disciplined and say no when I need to. If I need to be sleeping at 10 p.m. and waking up at 5 a.m., I will leave earlier, even though they're like, oh no, you never come. And everybody is only concerned with themselves at that time, even though, your friends are lovely people. It's not like they're
Yeah.
selfish, but they're concerned about their fun at that time. They're not thinking that you have a long-term goal to reach. So I think being disciplined and really realizing that you are your only, support and realizing what you need to do to get to the long term. That doesn't go to say you don't have fun. Of course you do. But not being so drawn into everybody's expectations of what you need to be. And I think that's something Pasha I've seen has done extremely, extremely well, where he is not afraid of setting boundaries and saying
Hmm.
no and setting discipline for himself. And I think that is something that really is conducive to getting far. So I think to your very loaded question, those would be my three things I feel that have helped me so far as they have.
Your words you mentioned so powerful. Everything you mentioned, like having that curiosity and learning to say no and just being your own support system, and
No.
it feels to me like I'm speaking to someone who's enlightened in a way, and I know you are, because it only a person who's enlightened to obviously some extent can go and take those actions. Otherwise, everybody we see around us, more or less, they are the product of their circumstances. They don't have that sort of, they haven't self-reflected enough to be able to question what is going around in the circumstances and change the autonomous behavior they have in that circumstance, and like wait and question, oh, am I actually supposed to be doing this? I was like that for the longest time, and I
Yeah.
guess in some ways a lot of us were as well. You from early on, I know you've had your fair share of struggles and everything, and obviously that shape you to be the amazing alpha human being you are today. And it's amazing
Nice. I'm
because
so flattered.
no, it's
You know,
honestly, you've earned it.
yeah, you have,
Thank
and
you.
you know how you said that in the. I think you're being modest. I think you are definitely at a position where you can tell people. It's sometimes we think that like, this is what Pramit and I discuss as well, because we're talking about so many philosophies, we're talking about so many practices, and even just in another episode, Pramit was talking about how about the Wim Hof method, and
Hmm.
this is what we say in this podcast is that you don't need to be an expert or anything. You just need to have that experience. You have racked up that experiential, whatever you want to call it, to definitely tell people who are listening that, hey, this is where I am and this is where I am going to be, but this is how I did it.
Yeah,
So the things
Yeah.
that you've mentioned, so concise, so coherent, and actually in a chronological order, which I love. And these are the steps that anyone can follow. Like, guys,
Yeah.
whatever, you should like the 5 minutes, you should like put it rewind or do anything, like scroll and just listen to her again and again and write those steps down, because actually these are the keys, these are the fundamentals. Of course there are so many things that you can add up to it, but these are the fundamentals, being down to earth with your upbringing, because most of your social experiences actually stem from there. And of
Yeah.
course, in a country like Pakistan, unfortunately, um, a lot of consent is required, but with the correct people and the correct support, you can unlock a lot of doors. And that is why I
Yeah.
emphasize on the word high value woman. And like how Parmeet put it as well, the experiences that you've racked up, you are truly an alpha female and an inspiration. And so many people can look up to you and where you're
yeah,
going. And that is
I
why I
think.
believe you should come to social media.
yeah.
I
And
I was
think.
making my
I.
case.
every
I think the point you mentioned about, like we have racked up that experience, or I think that's a valid way to put it, because that's how you learn, right? I've been so inspired, and I've learned so much even from you guys, from Pasha's discipline, or from Permeet's quest to becoming more self-aware, towards becoming more conscious. Like, I see you guys constantly trying towards that, and it's inspiring for me. Like, I learned so much from that. And obviously none of us are experts, or like
it's
at the top of whatever
energy.
we do, but
Yeah,
exactly, it's the learning we can share, and I think that's a big part of connectivity too. We're giving value to each other through this, which I
yeah.
think is absolutely
It's
phenomenal.
how much juice is in the energy that we're sharing.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah. Yeah.
determines how close we are and the relationship and the bond we have with each other. Because you would have a lot of friends, you share an energy with them, but there's no juice to it.
Mm,
They don't
yeah.
make you question yourself or be a better person. You Everything you mentioned as well, you said it with such conviction and confidence. You're someone, you as much as I've known you since when I have, uh, you've always been that person who's been confident in who she is, leads every action is with conviction. You're very sure about the things you do. There's not much confusion about the
Mm,
steps you take, and yeah, you're so sure about does that come naturally? From when I've known you, you've been like a very
yeah.
self-aware person. Does that come naturally, or you have to work on it, like through
I
meditation
think
and stuff?
that's a really interesting question, because it's a discussion I've been having my sister over the past few days, where this is something that I've heard, also from other people, where I do come across as that. And somehow I can agree with that. Like, it's not that I feel that I'm better or I'm great or whatever. I feel just okay in what I am. I think I have this acceptance of me. I remember I used to write these letters for myself in this website called Future Me, where you can basically write a letter, an email at one point in time and set a date, and it's gonna get delivered to you at a
Wow.
future date.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes, I'll just be sitting and I'll get a letter from myself from 2015, 2017, 2018. So it's really interesting because you get to compare yourself to those versions of yourself in the past. And I see through that kind of how my self-image and my self-confidence changed because when I look at some of those letters, I got a letter recently from myself in 2017, I think it was. And it
Wow.
was a very horrible time that I was going through. I was really struggling with my exams, and I think I had failed a couple exams even, and things were just not going super well for me. And I remember the self-talk from that letter was like, you better be doing something that, you can be proud of. You better be like, I hope you're not. Like, it was very demeaning. It was a tough love talk. I was trying to motivate myself, but it was in a very demeaning tone, like in a mean coach
Yeah.
way. And I realized it didn't have to be that way. And now, when it was really interesting, but now when I compare that version of myself to the self-talk that I have towards myself now, I think it just comes from from a much deeper place. Like
Yeah.
it comes actually from the soul where I do what I need to do and I don't need to be talking so meanly to myself anymore.
But
And I think that kind of, um, you know, the source of consciousness that it comes from also it enables me to just be very okay with myself and what I am. I can obviously be ambitious and I can want to do certain things, but it doesn't need to be coming through this feeling of lack, through this feeling
yeah.
of I am not enough. It comes from a feeling of I am good as I am and I can also try this. It's a much more wholesome source. And I think that's where the confidence might seem like it's coming from because I don't try and question myself, whether it's
Yeah.
the different elements of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important you went through that step because it was a step for you. It was a step in the path for you to be here. You wouldn't
Yeah,
be here without that. When
for
I
sure.
also look at things in the past which I am not very happy or proud of, or maybe to some extent regret, I don't regret it because I genuinely do believe I wouldn't be here if I didn't go through that. you know
Yeah.
it's like, in a way, your biggest competition makes you the better version of yourself, even though you might
Mm,
hate it, right?
yeah.
Like Israel Adesanya said this as well. But anyway, I just made such an interesting observation, and I just want to share with you guys. Both of you, I see, are naturally, like, have been aware in that regard from from way earlier than I was, and from an early age. And I've seen you guys. I know Anas for longer than you, but ever since I've known you, and ever since I've known Anas as well, you guys have been uh, very, like, self-aware naturally. And I don't know how much I can put that to the struggles you guys went through from an
Mm.
early age, which kind of like required you to ask those questions and be more self-aware. Whereas I personally had a very comfortable life, and it was only when I was 23, 24 I started questioning myself. And the part of why I put myself through a lot of suffering now is because I don't have that struggle. I don't have much of involuntary suffering. That is why I put myself through voluntary suffering, because that is the only way to grow. Does it make sense?
I think that's
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
extremely potent question. Maybe Pasha, if you want to start and then I can follow.
No, no, no. Of course, you are going to go ahead. Guest comes first, so please. I'm more than that. I'm interested to listening your part of the answer.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really interesting question that you've asked, and I love the way that you've put it together. And there's something I've also been thinking about in the past, about how early life suffering or trauma can help you grow further. There's some people that really use it to their advantage and some people that
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 don't.
trauma
Yeah.
takes over and it finishes them.
Yeah.
And I see for Pasha, for example, like I know some of the things that he's been through and he's really used them to his advantage to grow even further.
Mm.
I think in my personal experience, when I was a little kid, I obviously don't didn't have an extremely easy childhood. There were many factors that were very complicated in the way that I grew up. Um, when I was growing up, that self-awareness of none of that was there, you know? Like I was a child and what was happening, like you have a certain capacity, you're a cup, you have a certain capacity. Whatever was happening was way out of my capacity, like the glass was overflowing. When I grew up and my capacity increased and I could kind of, you know, the thing in the glass started filling up and I could fully perceive what was happening and starting to understand and break down and analyze. I think that's where it all started for me. Before that, it was just too much. Like I was just rolling with the punches. I was numb and I was just living through life. And it was a conscious effort. I remember having very, very, very open and honest conversations with my family, with my friends, like never shying away from those because those eventually helped me kind of break down all the feelings I had,
You
all the
realize this
experiences that I
early
had been.
on.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to be surrounded, like, you know, to have a mother and a sister who were very open to those sorts of conversations. I think it was through talking to each other to really not trying to, you know, hide our experiences because I feel a lot of the time people don't talk about their experience or what they're going through because they feel, oh, it's not going to help me in the end. It's not going to do anything for me. Why should I
Yeah.
talk about it? But talking about it has a much longer term impact in the sense that it really helps you quiet down this internal noise that you have. So I think having open conversations very early on about all the experiences that I had. Plus, I discovered this really interesting YouTube channel. I think Parmeet might know it. It's called The School of Life, which is basically a YouTube
I
channel
think
that
I've
is
heard of it.
all, yeah, I think you might have. It's all about psychology and the human mind and how we, you know, psychiatry and the way we perceive things and early childhood experiences. And it helped me understand very early on my experiences through a very psychological lens, you know? So instead of the stories I was telling myself becoming the absolute truth, I could look at them very objectively. And so that really helped me with that self introspection process. And, you know, kind of it only continued from there, where then I also got into spirituality and I also started meditating quite a bit. And I also, you know, started looking at life from that sort of a lens. So I did the analysis and the psychological work. And then I also kind of started getting into consciousness. And I think the combination of the both of them, it's been the core focus of my life for the past couple of years. It's been a very important journey for me. And I'm now very curious to hear Pasha's experience with this.
I'm gonna go in chronological order because first of all, I'm gonna come back to Sadia's answer, but for me, that is again your observation skills are just phenomenal because once you said those words, once you said those observation, I was like, yeah, that what he's saying is
Yeah.
making sense. And actually, what you said about struggle, I'm just going to touch on briefly before I share my point of view and reflect on Sadia's. I don't agree with what you said that you did not have your like as comparisons or not. I think we talked about it in the voice note as well. I believe everyone has their sort of struggle, even if the life is comfortable or not. There's levels to it. There's like this is what did not used to think, and this is I am sure a lot of people also think as well. Like people with privilege, people with wealth, people with comfortable life, they might not think that they have struggled, that yeah, just struggling. So I believe everyone has its share, and I'm proud of you, like because the way that you have because I know a lot of people in the similar circumstances, and I'm sorry, I do not want to do this, but I cannot help but compare and have like a contrasting view. But I see you, and then I see what you're doing with your life right now and where you're gonna go. I am super proud, and that is also because of the struggles that you have. The fact that you were asking, even at 23, 24, you were asking yourself these questions is
Mhm.
those struggles led you to those questions. So I just wanted to put that out there. Coming to Sadia's thing again, I think the way that she is answering is blowing my mind because so coherently, so
Yeah,
chronologically, in
bro.
such an
She's
ordered fashion. Like this is
yeah.
truly amazing. That's she is putting her thoughts into a thought train, which
Like
is
Chat
just
GPT.
absolutely. I
You
think
guys
this
are
is
making my
too.
morning. You guys have made my month.
No, we've made, yeah, we'll come to this, but of course, yes, I relate to what Sadia is saying as the things that we experienced during our childhood. So my father passed away at an early age, and I've had the privilege of knowing him. Um, as I don't know, like as a toddler or whatever you're going to call that age bracket. And actually, like what's written behind is "Have no fear when Pasha is here." So he used to say that to me every morning. I have an amazing friend Kushi, and my other friends. They made this for me on my birthday, and I am just so happy that they were aware and that they actually put this into a thing that I can use. So this is what
Wow.
he used to say to me, like "Have no fear when Pasha is here," and that has, I don't know how, but naturally that has made me the person that I am. Like I try to live by that every single day with every breath that I take. And as an early, like even during my early years, I have been involved in so many, um, with so many volunteering organizations, with so many of these charity drives, with so many of these things that has really made me so hard in the sense that I've seen people without power. And I still consider myself as a person with a lot of dependency on a lot of other external factors and as a powerless person. So my goal and my, like, again, this comes to me naturally. I've never pondered over it. Vermeet came into my life and then he made me ponder over these things. So I'm recently starting to understand and unfold this, but that has a lot to do with dependency, and that has a lot to do with teaching people as well as to how not to be dependent on other people and how to create your own power. And as I said, when I used to go to these volunteering drives, when I used to visit these villages, do these drives, raise these funds, and do a lot of these things, and I used to see people who are dependent and who are just powerless and who are just on their own. And that just made me realize one thing, that I cannot be the same thing, because I believe that God has given me that natural ability to take more than what I can carry, and also like lend a shoulder to others whenever they needed me to. And that is why I believe, and this is where this comes from, like have no fear in Pasha. I believe that my father, I wish that I could get to know him a little bit more, but however much that I knew, I believe is summed up in this thing. And that is, and actually this is what I hear from other people as well, and that is actually where I think that is how my personality has shaped. And I don't know if I were able to answer that question, but through the experiences of early childhood, and these things, and just because I'm coming from a dynamic of power, and I believe that people might think of this, like power is not like the power that you understand. Power is the ability to be just independent and influence others in a good way. um, not to necessarily make them think of what you think or influence them based on your ideas, but to just give them those wings so that they can fly and they can do their things as well. It's sort of like that analogy, where we say that you can teach a fisherman, oh sorry, you can feed a person, but if you can teach them how to catch a fish or to hunt or make them sustainable on their own, this is
Enable.
what there is. And yeah, and like I said about Marcus Aurelius saying, things you do things with intention. So everything that I've done in my life, up till now, up to this point, even with this podcast, even talking to you, this is honestly just to put myself in a position of power where I can learn, I can have knowledge, I can understand, so that I can pass it on to whoever I interact with, whoever I have those relationship with, and to just say that have no fear when Pasha is here. And for them to have their own saying as well, they can have their own thing as well, that you don't have to,
Mantra.
like, exactly, like, I'm here, and I'm here not only long term, but I'm here, like what Sadia says, that to teach you, to impart, not necessarily teach, again, like just whatever knowledge that I have, to share it
Share.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you can be powerful as well, and that you can make others around you powerful as well. So yeah, I mean, I really hope I was able to answer your question. Again, it was a loaded question, not as coherent as Sadia, because god damn, she just dissected that thing. She's a surgeon. I think after this you should definitely go into surgery, because she was able to open this question, dissect it, and stitch it right back up, and amazing.
I think your answer was phenomenal, and I think there was a lot of interesting things that you said in there. One of them that really piqued my interest was the power dynamics that you mentioned, right? Power is a very layered, very complex topic, and it has the potential to bring out the worst and the best in people. What I see with you and a little bit that I know about your background is the power was negative. It was imposed upon you in a negative way. How were you able to take those power dynamics and transform them to such a positive concept in your mind? Because you view it with a lot of optimism through a very positive lens, and that's how you want to impart power rather than through a very negative, egotistical way.
Actually, I have no idea
Good
about this.
question.
I actually like this is how
You
I
actually
have been.
mentioned this to me. Maybe like I can direct you in this because we've talked
Sure,
about this.
sure, sure. Maybe
Because
help me a bit.
you saw people who were in power not do right to you,
Hmm.
Mm.
and that really showed you how to,
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, for sure.
you
Okay,
know.
amazing. I can answer this with a quote by Seneca, and like the Stoics. So basically, how they see it is that the best revenge actually is to not be like that person.
Mm.
So I would rather die. I would rather vomit, puke, and to not see myself commit one step towards the same thing or the same negative things that were like done to me, said to me, etc., etc. The best thing is to not be like that person. So that is why, and like because help was not given or help was not provided, the opposite direction to that was to provide that. And all my life I've been just doing that, and that just makes me like exactly now it comes back to me naturally as well. That is why I was able to turn it around, because the things that were done, I just wanted to do the opposite and to show the like to show that yes, if you can do it the opposite as well, it's a net positive. It's a net, you grow, you thrive together. We're all like human species is a social being. So I
Yeah.
guess that answers it very, like, if I
Yeah.
thank you so much. Parmeet was able to direct me. I'm so bad at these things. First of all, that was again a phenomenal question, and then with Parmeet's tag team, damn. So yeah.
No, I
No,
think
that's
I think
amazing.
that's one of the things that is the most inspiring about you is this infectious positivity and optimism you have. I
Yeah,
think whenever
yeah.
somebody's
You
with
guys
you,
are too
they're
kind.
able to feel so good about themselves. I feel like any room you leave it with a lot of positive energy. Like there's just something about you that is just
I
so
think
Yeah.
about
wholesome.
this. It's the same with you guys. It's the
Yeah.
same with you guys. I've told
Yeah.
Parmeet countless time. Wherever hangouts we used to do, even people who did not know him were like, "Who is that guy? He's just
Yeah.
smiling. He has a smile on his
Yeah.
face. This guy did a half a marathon while smiling." And same with
Yeah, that's
you.
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Same with you. Whenever like we meet, whenever I go home, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to think about, and you just like I still remember the when we met at Lamek, and you taught me about the principle of push and pull, and I've incorporated that so much into my life to understanding, where my push comes on, where my pull comes from, where happiness is, like all of these things, all of these
Yeah.
ideas, and so much more. So I
Yeah.
it's the same right back at you guys. It's look, this
Yeah.
this we can go on and on about it. This
Yeah.
always, in every podcast we always have a love letter session.
Yeah.
It's
No,
it's
that's
I
always
think
good.
like
That's
this.
good
Yeah.
because life is all about love
yeah,
and showing love and
100%.
helping each other and being there for each other. You know what's so
Wait,
amazing is that. Sorry, you want to say something?
no, no, go on, go on. Sorry, I wanted to ask you a follow-up question, but I'll do it after what you're saying.
Okay, go for a question because I was going towards conclusion.
Okay. No, I
Maybe
think,
we can
yeah,
take this last question. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it ties into the topic we were talking about. So you mentioned about how Pasha and I kind of went through what we did through the process of struggle early on in our lives. However, with you, it's even more interesting because you say you didn't have much struggle, yet you still were able to push yourself in that direction. Please enlighten me as to how that was the case because I think that makes you even more impressive because
I
that was
Absolutely.
all from you then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing question, and I've time and time again questioned myself on this as well. And let me share the discovery I had. When I was in 2015, I remember so vividly. In 2015, I came across monks
Yeah.
and how their power to be in control of their mind, and that really, really, really intrigued me. And I was really curious, like, how are they able to? If you can, I've been a big believer. If you can control your mind, you can do anything in life, right? Everything
Yes.
starts
Yeah.
from here, right? So when I discovered that, and I discovered in 2015 that you could do that through meditation, I was blown away, and I
Yeah.
really want to dive deep into this. But obviously, at the time, I wasn't like life was going so fast. I was in uni, partying, this and that, friends,
Mm.
a lot of stuff going on. So I was still a product of the circumstances around me. And although I tried meditation here and there a little bit, never really worked out for me. But when I read The Power of Now, have you read it? You've read it, right?
Yeah. I love that book. Yeah.
Yeah, that really changed my perspective on things, and
Mm.
that really started this journey for me to go on this quest of self awareness and conquering your mind and being as mindful as you can be. And I just looked at it in that way, like it's not everything you want to achieve in life, it's not on the outside, it's all here, it all starts from here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
obviously there was other realizations as well, looking at different people, successful people who've made a lot of money, like, but weren't happy, you
Yeah.
know. So I used to always question, like, what makes you happy, how do you get there? And I want you to gonna, I know you're gonna vouch on this, that's why I'm asking you. People may think that, oh, once you become self-aware, it's just all butterflies and rainbows. No, it's work every day.
Yeah.
It's work
It's an
every
upward
day.
journey.
It's enough. Yeah, it's like just awareness that just helps you be observant of the emotions you're having, and then kind of filter out that energy, and be in
Yeah.
control of what energy you want to serve, right? You're still going to
Yeah.
have bad negative energy, you're still going to have doubtful thoughts, you're still going to have, I still have days where I feel low and stuff, and
Mm.
then I just want to go back to my practice of meditation and spirituality and journaling and stuff like that. And it's just, it takes a lot of effort, and it's every day you have to do it again, again and again. It's not just you
Yes.
open a door and it's you're to heaven, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think
with you as well,
super
I've
solid.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I echo
So,
every single word that you said. 100%.
and just to conclude, I just want to say, like, it's so amazing. This was the primary reason why this podcast came to life, was so that we can be in a position where we can question each other like this and have a conversation,
Mm.
because you asking me this question helped me discover a lot about myself, and
Yeah.
you sharing that push and pull dynamic or power dynamics with Anas, or me telling him about that, or it's different things we talked
Yeah.
about here today. It just helps. I hope you had some discoveries as
For
well in
sure.
your
I
own
think this
ways,
was extremely enlightening.
so it just like, through this conversation we can just help understand ourselves better, and you give that improvement, that growth credit to the friend you're speaking to, that improves our
Yeah.
relationship as well. I feel
Yeah.
like we're so much more closer just because of this, like,
A
directed
hundred
conscious
percent. Yeah.
conversation we've had, and we know each other more, and there's so much more depth to it.
Yeah.
So, man, it's
No,
honestly amazing.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I will say this again. It's extremely impressive what you guys are doing. I think so much good is going to come out of it. You guys have personally already in my life brought so much good, and I'm really excited to see how other people can also, benefit from that because you guys have so much to offer into the world. Seriously, like your minds are treasure chests. So I'm really happy that you're generous enough to share that with the world now.
It's just that we've received this energy and then we're sharing it. So
Yeah,
part of
Absolutely.
it has come from you and part of it has come from different people. So
yeah,
receiving it, then it's just your purpose to, pass it on further. It's not yours to keep. You have to just spread it,
yeah.
elevate it, help everyone. It's just about exchanging this energy, like
Hmm.
the one we shared here today as well, that help us be more
I
aware of
just
ourselves.
want to like because the flowers that she is giving to us, and I just want to like give her a bouquet back, is that through, because we realize that you are also a house of wisdom and you have so much to share and so much to give, and we're so happy that, because you see, this is exclusive as it can get. You're not everywhere except for in a personal capacity. So to be able, yeah, so for to be
And
able,
fully there.
Yeah,
exactly. And for us to be able to like through this channel, through this platform, able to like amplify your voice, because a lot of people are going to listen to this. And again, like I said, that I really wish that, I think both of us really wish that you do in the future, like, do come on any platform where you can share, or like in any other way, like, where, like, the
Come to
whole
this
idea is that,
platform again.
yeah,
I
exactly,
would
like,
love
reach more people and spread your ideas, so that more people can know your journey, more people can share and relate with you. And we're just so happy to get this exclusive take on your journey and your philosophy. So thank you so much for your time. It's a Sunday, and I know it's supposed to be a relaxing day, but I think this conversation will leave all of us really full of energy, and give us a lot to think about in the coming days and weeks. And just yeah,
Yeah.
full of energy now because of the things that we've talked about. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
There's no other
honestly.
way I would have rather spent my Sunday. It was an absolute pleasure and joy and honor. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, from my side as well, it's just a privilege to, when I'm able to have a conversation like this with certain people, it's genuinely a privilege to have them in my life because they help me be a better version of myself.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Anas can say the same.
Yes.
And through that, we just want to exchange this energy
Yeah.
through this podcast as well. So we admire
All
you
love,
and
all around.
all love. Yeah, yeah. We love you, admire you, respect you in so
Yes.
many ways, and just
Same.
can't wait to catch up in Dubai. And hopefully,
Inshallah.
you're gonna be
Absolutely.
here again before I come to Dubai.
I will be,
But
I hope.
yeah, once you come back, I really wanted to talk more about the spiritual side of it as well and the
Mm.
awareness side of it
Yeah.
as well.
That's an
The
interesting one to get into, to be honest.
7 day hike, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
So next time.
Next
But
episode.
again, thank you all for joining and sticking by till the end. Support us in any way you can. We really appreciate it. You supporting us just adds to the purpose and adds to that energy that you want to share with people. And uh, it's just about that conversation, having that conversation, opening doors to have that conversation. It's just, there's a stigma around, you know especially in our society,
Mm.
to people are not talking about these things. So that's
Yeah.
all we want to do. So support us in any way you can, and we will see you next Sunday.
Bye, guys. Ciao.
Bye bye.
Thank you, guys.